The wild card in the National League and the Western Division in the American League are starting to show some clarity, but it's still pretty chaotic.
You are Locked On MLB. Your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. You can call me Sully. I'm an Emmy-nominated television producer who apparently is a big Montreal Expos fan. And I have been a member of the Locked On Podcast Network for the last 5 seasons, and we're now in the final week of the regular season, which is always kind of sad for me. Follow me at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page, and you can follow us there. And also, we have at least once a week, every week, my co-host for the day is
Millard Thomas, host of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. You can catch me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for the personal account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. Please hit subscribe on the Locked On Diamondbacks YouTube channel. And I have some big news. On Friday, I officially became a father. I am now a cat dad, Sully. Woo! Exciting. My first son. I am very
Cat Dad Sully. I was going to do Cat Scratch Fever, which was a Ted Nugent song. But hey, congratulations! What I assume you've named the cat Goldschmidt. What's the name of your cat? Cattell Marte.
You know, we're 2 days in. We're still searching for a name. Right now, we're just workshopping with Kitty. So if you have any name suggestions for us, don't be afraid to reach out on Twitter, comment section on YouTube. We are taking all suggestions for the name right now.
And put a hashtag Millard Cat. Cat. Hashtag Millard Cat. We got to get our name for Millard's cat. Hey, maybe Millard's cat could be the name of our trivia question that I threw out the last time, and already have a couple of people answered it right. Court Stell, I got to have my my tournament of champions. Amy, Court Stell, Craig Brindle, all these people keep throwing the correct answer at me. John Murphy Jr. has been doing a good job of it. The question was, who was the oldest World Series MVP in baseball history? The oldest World Series MVP in baseball history. Do you know the answer to it?
Steve Pearce.
No, actually not. That's not a bad guess.
He's kind of old, right? He's like
he was not a spring chicken. The answer is Willie Stargell, who was the MVP of the first World Series I ever watched as a kid in 1979, and he was 39 years old when he was when Pops, who is now that's 12 years younger than I am now, they were calling him Pops, led the Pittsburgh Pirates to a World Series champion, to the disco beat of "We Are Family." So there you go.
How high is David Ortiz on that list? He has to be like kind of top 5.
Yeah. Actually, do you know what? That's good. I'm going to look that up. I'm going to go to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth. Okay, David Ortiz. They called him Big Papi.
They called him Big Papi. Greatest World Series run I've ever saw.
2013, he was 37.
Mm-hmm.
He was a year younger.
Yeah, so
you had Big Papi and you had Pops.
You had to be right there.
There you go. Hey, this weekend was a weekend of bizarre anarchy. Of course, on Sunday's show, I'm not going to get too into the weeds. We are going to talk a little bit about the NL wild card in segment 2, including the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are inching closer and closer and closer to a wild card status. But let's talk first about the American League West. An astonishing turn of events have happened. Just a week and a half ago, the Rangers were not a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
They had fallen out. They were no longer. They were trailing the third wild card team. And today, despite every effort to hand the game to the Seattle Mariners, the Rangers held on for a razor-thin 9-8 victory. And with that, the Rangers completed their sweep of the Seattle Mariners. And the Rangers, who lost deGrom, who lost Scherzer, whose bullpen has been an abject disaster, who went onto that massive tailspin, and are finding themselves with less than a week to go in first place by themselves in the American League West, and the magic number is 5 for them to be not only the American League West champion, but have completely skip over the wild card round. This razor-thin race suddenly became the Rangers to lose, and unless they have another, epic faceplant, then this has been an astonishing turn of events for the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, one of my dark horse teams entering the year. And when you look at this final stretch for them, yeah, they're going to have, those top dogs like the deGroms and Scherzers on the rotation. But you look at that lineup, they're completely healthy right now for the final stretch. You got Ardarlis Garcia back. Corey Seager's in there smashing. You got your rookie Yash Young back. So when you look at the Texas Rangers lineup, that's been an offense that's been able to carry them at different points of the season. We looked at that Rangers differential. It was so great because that offense was just smashing their way those first 3 months of the season. Hit a little bit of a slump in August, of course, post All-Star break, but during this final stretch of the season with that offense completely healthy, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that lineup carries them through this final stretch of games to that division title. Really what it comes down to is this Mariners versus Astros battle potentially for, that final wild card spot, because it seems like the Blue Jays is going to get that second wild card spot. AL East team is going to get that number 1 spot. So which AL West team is going to get that final wild card spot? The idea of the Houston Astros, a team that I have written in pen to make the postseason, the idea of them not making the playoffs in the final 6 games of the season. And they do face the D-backs in the final 2 games of the year. So the D-backs, once again, going to have major implications in this AL West race.
Yeah, but I mean, the D-backs are now. There is an incredible thing that happened as well, and this is, again, I can't stress this enough, that you cannot mark your calendar to say, hey, an easy win is coming up. The Astros went to Kansas City.
Yep.
102 loss Kansas City Royal team, and they're facing the Astros. And the whole mentality was Seattle and Texas are going to beat the snot out of each other, while Houston has the easy time of it at home against Kansas City. And what happened? Sweet. The Royals swept them. Absolutely swept them. And starting tomorrow, the Astros are playing the Seattle Mariners in Seattle. Castillo versus Verlander. Now, let me paint a picture for you here. If, and this is not an outrageous statement, if Seattle wins a game at home with their best pitcher on the mound, if that happens tomorrow, then we are in the final week of the season, and the Astros would be on the outside looking in of the postseason.
Which would be insane.
While the Rangers are playing the Angels, which I would think would be a much easier series, but we just saw with the Kansas City Royals sweeping the Astros, you cannot bank on easy wins at all. So it looks like if the Rangers, who are throwing Gray against Sandoval, the Troutless Angels, the Ohtani-less Angels, if the Rangers can win that series, they will they will essentially have eliminated the Astros or Mariners, one of those two, and either way they're going to be chipping away at their magic number, and we could see the Rangers be the American League West champions by the weekend, which is, to me, absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, and when you look at that Astros versus Mariners series, I mean, a lot of this stuff is going to come down to who owns the tiebreaker. And the Astros entered that series against the Mariners 2-8 against the Mariners this season. The Mariners have completely owned the Astros this year. So the Astros have no chance of catching the Mariners in that tiebreaker. So they have to go in there. They have to win the series, and they have to finish ahead of the Mariners if the Astros do want to make it to the postseason. They cannot finish with the same record as the Mariners.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break here, but we come back. The wild card, while a tiny bit clearer, is still pretty dang wild. Are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and seller at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that translates comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. These deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habits of top performers, which leads to better outcomes like more pipeline, higher win rates, and larger deals. We call this deep sales, and we've built the first deep sales platform with the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and get started. All right, we're here doing our Monday runaround. Hey, for those of you who are just waking up on Monday, check your podcast catcher because I dropped a new episode on both Saturday and on Sunday. Saturday's show, we took a bounce around the league, and we also paid tribute to friend of the podcast, Sean Doolittle, who used to he had recorded the intro to the Old Sully Baseball Daily podcast.
Oh, wow.
Wonderful, wonderful guy with a terrific 11-year career, and I think he's going to have a long career as a broadcaster as well because he's a very funny, affable guy. And then yesterday, I broke down the insanity that was the 13-12 game where apparently the Steelers beat the Bengals 13-12 in the game yesterday. It was absolutely insane. So catch up a little bit there on a couple of additional episodes of Locked On MLB. I'm going to be recording them left and right this entire week. If I take a day off, it's because the dog hasn't woken me up yet. But what's not taking a day off is the NL wild card, which would be a little more interesting if the Rockies had held on to their leads on Saturday and Sunday, because that would bring the Cubs a little closer. The Reds actually held on to beat the Pirates, and Joey Votto gave a very heartfelt speech to the Cincinnati Red fans as this could be his last home game in Cincinnati. A little tear to your eye seeing a guy who is a throwback guy, plays his whole career with one team. But as it stands right now, we have the wildcard teams. Philadelphia looks pretty secure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're locked.
They're locked, and they look good.
Yeah.
They don't pick
the Braves.
I don't pick them over Los Angeles or Atlanta in a league championship series matchup. But, man, I could see them pulling off an upset and getting to the league championship series. Your Diamondbacks showed up and confirmed that Carlos Rodon was a bust his first season with the Yankees. Absolute. For people my age, that's an Ed Whitson, Kenny Rogers, Kagawa Bustarinho. Okay. Hey, Zach Gallen looked like a Cy Young contender today.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, he's not going to finish as a finalist, but at least he looked like he could be back on track for the postseason at least.
You would rather see him win those games in October in a series where you're going to be facing the D-backs will probably be facing Philly. Is that who they be? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, maybe Gallen versus like Nola game one or Gallen Wheeler game one.
That's a heck of a matchup, but I give a slight edge to Gallen, although Nola is terrific. I mean, like the Phillies are going to be a tough team.
Yeah, I mean, their lineup is insane. So, I mean, there's no walk in the park, especially going into Philadelphia, too, one of the most raucous crowds in Major League Baseball. I mean, that's not going to be a fun environment for the D-backs.
No, but they've stared them down before.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like the Brewers, their magic number is down to 1. They were not helped by the fact that the Rockies got pounded in well, they didn't get pounded, they just lost a bunch of close games in Wrigley. But they'll get either 1 win or 1 Chicago loss. And so that will mean the Brewers right now are lined up to play Chicago. But Miami is right on their heels, absolutely right on their heels. And Miami, give them credit because they looked bad the other day. They got their butts handed to them the other day. And John Bird hits the big home run. And they wound up beating the Milwaukee Brewers 6-1, spoiling their hopes to clinch the division today. And as it stands right now, in the wild card chase, you have, as I said, Philadelphia is up by 4.5. That's great. Arizona is only half a game ahead of Chicago, who's only half a game ahead of the Marlins. So no one's locked in stone just yet. And in the coming up, the D-backs play the Yankees, who, by the way, are officially eliminated.
Yep, D-backs did that.
And they're starting Kelly against Schmidt, and a loss for the Yankees would put them at 500. I'm just saying that out of pure schadenfreude. But a win for the Diamondbacks goes a long way to giving them not really wiggle room, but at least making sure other people have to keep pace with them.
Yeah, D-backs need everyone they could get. That would be huge. I really do think the Marlins are going to take that final wildcard spot just because, too, I mean, I don't know how serious the Braves are going to play at the end of the season. We just saw them get smacked up by the Phillies. But the Cubs, their final 2 series are against the Atlanta Braves and the Milwaukee Brewers. So they're going against 2 division leading, teams, and the Marlins are only going against the Pirates and the New York Mets, 2 teams not in the postseason mix. Maybe those teams want to play spoiler down the stretch, but I think the Marlins are going to take this final wild card spot. We're going to be handing out some awards later. Maybe one of their, team members, managers gets one of the awards, but I like the Marlins to take that final wild card spot. The Chicago Cubs, they've been kind of up and down the last couple of weeks. We've seen David Ross, the manager of that team, kind of call out his team saying, what are we doing out here? We shouldn't be losing to a team like this. Who was, I think they were against either the Colorado Rockies or the Pittsburgh Pirates, where it's like, we're a way better team than they are, and we should be beating them up right now. And it didn't happen. And we'll see if that kind of message can get through to these players and kind of spark them for this final stretch of the season. But I just love everything the Marlins have done post All-Star break, and I think they're going to take that final wild card spot.
Yeah, I think they are too, but nothing seems to make sense anymore. A few weeks ago, I would have bet everything that the Rangers would have been the team on the outside looking in. The Rangers bullpen, we had done a show. You and I did a show where the thumbnail was Texas Fold'em. It was one of my most watched episodes we've ever had. And I was saying, I had the bugle. I was going, brr, brr, brr. And all of a sudden, we're now looking up, and now they're going to probably clinch the division. By the way, what this really does to me is it's all but, in a way, it's telling me that unless Minnesota goes on a rampage in October, I would I would say that the American League champion is going to come out of the East. Because if you saw how you've seen how the Blue Jays are hitting, the Rays had some big clutch hits, and Baltimore got a great performance from Means. They got a great performance from Gibson. Right now, if I'm a betting man, I'm saying again, I'm standing by my Baltimore Atlanta World Series. That's where I think we're going right now. But it's the Western teams just look very vulnerable right now, all of them. And if the Rangers win the division, which it looks like they're going to, they get the bye, and they're going to start Jordan Montgomery. Mm-hmm. But that bullpen's going to blow a playoff game.
Yeah,
you know it.
And the fact that they don't have those two top dogs in the rotation, like if you told me you at least had a Scherzer in that Rangers rotation with the Evaldes and the Montgomerys, like I think I would actually pick the Rangers to come out the American League instead of an AL East team, just because I don't know how translatable that super young Baltimore teams are going to be, or the Tampa Bay Rays, who I just think are always going to be a regular season team. I kind of like the AL West in terms of teams in terms of teams that have championship equity. I kind of like the Astros and Rangers and even like the Seattle Mariners over a team like the Baltimore Orioles or Tampa Bay Rays. But it's kind of crazy that only one of those teams is like, or two of those teams are going to make it to the postseason.
Yeah, I was about to say, there is a possibility the Astros may miss the playoffs altogether. Yeah. It is not, and not an outlandish one. Yeah, again, if Seattle wins a series at home against the team that just got swept by the Kansas City Royals, then we're going to the final weekend of the season where all the Mariners have to do is keep pace with the Astros, and then we do not have a defending. We'll have a new American League champion for the first time since COVID.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy to think about. I mean, the Astros have just freaking ran that American League. I mean, they've been in the championship series every year since 2017. So it would be a little bit of a surprise if they did make the postseason, because this is a team, like you said, that could miss the playoffs. But if they faced off against Tampa Bay or Baltimore, like I would still pick Houston in that series, despite them potentially missing the playoffs within the next week. One under the radar kind of storyline that was kind of funny from the past couple of weeks, the San Diego Padres just went on like a little 8-game winning streak. They were like, you know what? We win another 2 games. It might be like 3.5 back with like 6 to play. Like they were kind of sneaky, just hanging on by like one fingernail on the cliff.
Yeah. I mean, what killed them was the fact that the Cubs went on a 3-game winning streak against the Rockies. If the Cubs had lost that series to Colorado, that would have compressed everything. But right now, the magic number to eliminate, or the tragic number to eliminate the San Diego Padres is 2. Ooh. So they would basically have to run the table and have the Cubs lose all their games and all the teams. It's too much. It's too much.
They want to feel good about themselves. They could finish ahead of the Giants potentially. They want to feel good.
Well, they are now 1 game. Right as we're recording this, they're 1 game behind the Giants. So there you go.
All right. Well, Sully, let me hop on the mic here for a little bit, because I know we want to talk about some end of the season awards, hand out a couple of trophies to some MVPs, some Cy Youngs. But before we get there, I first want to talk to everyone about this little thing called Jase Medical, because I believe everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase Case. The Jase Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. And don't forget to catch every D-backs pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the Sirius XM app and search up Diamondbacks.
All right. Hey, we got the awards we can hand out. I have to say, I've said this before, and I said it again. They should have a ceremony, maybe before Game 1 of the World Series, where they hand out Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, MVP, Manager of the Year, because there's always this confusion. Yeah, I remember. I'll never forget it. Like when Clayton Kershaw won the MVP and the Cy Young Award after his brilliant 2014, and all the knuckleheads calling the sports talk shows are like, "Well, he choked in the playoffs. Why not give it to Bumgarner?" I don't understand. Every year was that it's a regular season award. It's nothing to do with this and nothing to do with that. Jeter, how come they give it to A-Rod? Jeter won the ring. Yes, I know he won the ring. There would be no more confusion if they hand these awards. They do that in the NBA. You know who the MVP is. They announce those things, and it sort of adds a little bit of juice and everything like that. So I say have a ceremony where they hand them out, and it adds a little bit of excitement beforehand. Why not? Who gets hurt from that?
Yeah, and I will say one thing that the NBA could do and the MLB could do, if you're going to hand out the awards, because I know you like how the NBA hands it out, but do it before the playoffs start. I think that's the issue that we see in basketball. That's the issue we see now, because it's like you feel like in the moment after a regular season, you know who the MVP is, and then after you go through the playoffs, you're like, why do we think that guy's the MVP? Because he might have flamed down the postseason, or someone else just takes it to another level who we already know is a great player, but then it's like we might have overlooked them in the regular season. So hand these awards out at the conclusion of the regular season before the playoffs start, so our perspective and our opinions on these awards aren't jaded, please.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, let's hand out some hardware here.
Yes, I think we're going to agree on a bunch of these.
Yeah. Let's do. You know what? I talked about one of them the other day. So I'm gonna throw out. I'm gonna throw one out right now. I gave out in my podcast yesterday who I think is hands down needs to be the American League Manager of the Year. I wonder who you would pick.
Okay, I feel like we might pick the same guy here just because I know this is one of your dudes. You got the photo behind you. You want one of his lieutenants to get hired, but why not just hire the main man himself, because he's won multiple World Series for the Giants and he's come to the Texas Rangers and in one season has able to turn around that franchise, a franchise that has been stuck in some mediocrity the last few years. Those post-World Series years, they've been stuck. They've been trying to spend money. It hasn't worked out. They've just been mediocre, but then after one season when it felt like they might have had average talent, they added a Marcus Semien, they added a Corey Seager. They struggled their first year, but the second season under Bruce Bochy, he's turned everything around. The culture, the offense is in full throttle. They've had, a lot of pitching woes in terms of health. Has not mattered. You got the best of Nathan Eovaldi, the John Grays. I think he just basically maximized every player on the roster. I mean, you go up and down, it's like every player I think is playing to the best version of themselves. And I think a great manager brings out the best of all the players on his team. I think Bruce Bochy has done that for the Rangers.
And all due respect to Brandon Hyde, all due respect to several other managers who've done a fine job this year in the American League. Mm-hmm. The fact that he's, as I said before, he's lost Scherzer, he's lost deGrom. His bullpen was just abysmal, and they went on that massive tailspin, and that he kept the team focused. And they never, while they tailspin and they fell out of the playoff race for a little bit, they managed to, stay in. And to me, I can't. That's just it's such an astonishing job that Again, I could understand someone making a case for Brandon Hyde, but no, this has to be Bruce Bochy.
Yeah, and we have the pedigree of Bochy has. Like, it's easy for your message to get across the locker room. It's easy to instill the values that you want on a team. So I think it's pretty obvious how much of an impact he's made since coming over to the Rangers.
Okay, who do you have in the National League?
My NL MVP,
Manager of the Year.
Oh, yeah, not my MVP. My NL Manager of the Year is another inspired pick by Sully Baseball, because you said this team, if they swapped out their manager, Don Mattingly, this team could potentially make the postseason. I'm talking about the Miami Marlins manager here, because this team, they did swap out the manager, and then all of a sudden, their offense took a big boost. Jazz Chisholm still once again in and out the lineup, but it doesn't matter because your Luis Arises have had great seasons. You've had some other great seasons like Jorge Solares. You've added pieces at the deadline thanks to your GM. You got some really great years out of the young guys of your rotation, because this team is so young, and a lot of those young pitchers have looked really good this year. I think when you look at this team, development's very important, and it looks like all these young players have taken a step forward this season under the new manager. So let me make sure I have his name right. Skip Schumacher of the Miami
He's so
Marlins.
good you don't know who the hell he is.
I had to write it down. I was like, let me make sure I have this one.
Which generic white guy is this manager? That's right.
Yeah, I was like, did he coach the
Was it Tom Trumplehorn? Is it Jim Riggleman? No, it's Skip Schumacher. Yeah. I'm leaning towards Schumacher, but let's not sleep on Brian Snitker. I mean, I know the Manager of the Year tends to be the manager who had to go through the most amount of turmoil, who overcame a lot of adversity. Easy for you to say. But I also occasionally want to manage, the manager who is just has their team in it all the time. I mean, I was giving some consideration to Dave Roberts when you consider how decimated their pitching staff was. How they had to they at one point were looking at was Lance Lynn going to be their number 2 pitcher because the injuries to May, the suspension of Urias, Gonsolin's injury, all these things happened at once, and the Dodgers, despite having a wonderful season from the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Giants making a run at them at one point, have, they're probably going to finish the season with 97, 98 wins, despite all that. So I know it's, the Braves and the Dodgers are supposed to win. Yeah, but a lot of teams that are supposed to win don't.
Yeah.
And so I would probably say Schumacher for the same reason you did, but I would give a lot of love to both Roberts and to Snitker for the fine job, and to Craig Counsell for the Milwaukee Brewers, who saw that opening with the Cardinals wetting the bed, and have the Brewers are going to take this division with ease. Okay, let's go on. Let's go to the other one that I think is going to make you happy. The Rookie of the Year. I think the American League is kind of easy. Gunnar Henderson of Baltimore is my pick there. Again, someone from Baltimore is going to get some hardware this year, and I don't have his stats from today. He fits right in. As an infielder, giving him 20 some odd home runs and OPS in the 800s, has a little bit of speed, strikes out too much, fine, but he's a 22-year-old who is playing with the poise of a seasoned veteran, and it looks like that Orioles team is probably going to win the division. I am completely all for that.
Yeah, Gunnar Henderson is the betting favorite right now. Also, Tristan Cassis of the Boston Red Sox is a sleeper. Also, Josh Young of the Rangers, and maybe even like a Yoshida of the Red Sox as well. But I'll probably go Gunnar Henderson, 800 plus OPS, and a finish with near 30 home runs. Just looked really solid and comfortable at the plate as his first professional, big league season under his belt. And then, of course, the NL Rookie of the Year award winner. I mean, we don't even have to discuss it because sports books have started paying this bet out months ago because he ran away with this so early on. Corbin Carroll is going to take home this award. I did a podcast. I've been doing podcasts on him all week on where does his rookie season rank among all
fantastic
rookies. Yeah, like this is like a top 5, top 10 rookie season that we've ever seen. First player ever, 25 home runs, 50 stolen bases. Really incredible stuff from Corbin Carroll.
Yeah, he was really been tremendous. I mean, Jordan Walker had a terrific year. Kodai Senga, L.A. De La Cruz with his impact on the Reds. But this has to be unanimous first for Corbin Carroll. I mean, he's been unbelievable.
I think Senga is probably going to finish second because all of a sudden he might finish like top 5 in Cy Young voting.
Yeah, but it's Carroll. Okay. A couple weeks ago, this would have been another Arizona Diamondback win for the Cy Young. Gallen pitched great today, and he's going to wind up having a wonderful season. There's no getting around it. But this has to be Blake Snell.
Yeah, Blake Snell actually kind of like ran away with it at the end of the season. I mean,
unbelievable.
He's going to lead the league in ERA. He's going to lead the league in ERA plus, hits per 9. He's going to have one of the best strikeout numbers in the sport as well. So it's like in terms of everything, he's going to be like top 3 or better in every major statistical stat for a pitcher. So Blake Snell has ran away with this at the end of the season.
And another person who's run away with it, and man, could you imagine as disappointing a season as the Yankees have had this year, what would they have been without Garrett Cole, who has, his 200 innings pitched. His ERA is right now at 2.75. He has 217 strikeouts in those 200 innings. His win-loss record is 14-4, and I'm going to use that in his favor because there have been so many games that he left with the lead that the bullpen, whisked away. He would easily, just off the top of my head, he would have 18 wins if the Yankees didn't blow some of his stellar performances he had there. And if you go to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth, a lot of black. Leads the league. If you like win-loss percentage, I'm not a big fan of it, but he leads the league in that. ERA, starts, innings pitched, ERA plus, whip, hits per 9 innings, all sorts of
everything.
Advanced metrics that I couldn't understand in 1,000 years he is the Cy Young Award winner.
Yeah, and quietly, like Sonny Gray might finish like runner-up or something.
Oh, he's been
had a great
terrific.
season. I just wouldn't expect him to all of a sudden come out of the woodwork and finish runner-up, even though he's a very good pitcher.
But it's going to be. I mean, Coles was the runner-up at the Cy Young Award in 2019 and 2021. He's finally going to get the award this year.
Yeah, I mean, say what you want. I mean, the Yankees gave him a lot of money, but he's been in the mix for that Cy Young Award and been one of the best pitchers in baseball every single season.
I think the one blemish is I think the one real blemish was wetting the bed in the wild card game against Boston in 2021. But he's been what the Yankees he's delivered. Yeah. He's been what the Yankees have needed.
Yeah, Cole hasn't been the problem as to why the Yankees haven't reached greater heights during his tenure with the team.
Okay, and the AL MVP, real tough, real tough. Should it be Shohei Ohtani unanimously, or should one jerk reporter give it to someone else just because they want to feel cool?
Yeah, honestly, and it's like it's even tough to make an argument for someone else right now. Like if there was even someone that had like 40, like if there was like a Vlad Guerrero, when Ohtani had the season a few years ago.
Right.
It was like, okay, there's someone else with 45 home runs, monster season. But it's like when you look at the odds for who else could win it, like Corey Seager's number 2, and Corey Seager's having an MVP type season. The only problem is they only play like 60-70% of the games this year. Like he's gonna have.
He doesn't have 130 some odd innings as a pitcher.
Yeah, he's going to have way less games than Ohtani, and, of course, he doesn't have the pitching stats either. So it's like, as good as Corey Seager's been, Ohtani is just on another level. And even if he didn't pitch, he's still the best position player as well in the American League. So it's like, whatever you want to say, Ohtani should get the MVP award.
And who do you have in the National League?
MVP, this one is a little bit tightly contested because you got those 2 Dodgers guys. But I'm going with the Braves, dude. Ronald Acuna, who is having one of the best seasons that we've ever had, might enter the 40-70 club. I don't think – has anyone ever done that before?
No.
I think he would be the first player. So it's like, if you're going to do stuff – I know Freddie Freeman, he's like the first 20 home run, 20 stolen base. You know what? That's not as cool. 2020 is not as cool as 40 and 70. So I'm going with Ronald Acuna.
A couple weeks ago, it was, I think, a 3-way race between Acuna, Freeman, and Betts. And then Acuna said, I got this. I think those are your 3 finalists. And I think 2 and 3 is a complete coin toss at this point between Betts and Freeman. But the way that Acuna has played the last 2 or 3 weeks has just set him aside. So I think, are any of them really toughly contested? I mean, other than Manager of the Year, I mean, those are all pretty. There's not going to be a lot of suspense unless there's a massive Mo Vaughn over Albert Bell upset. I don't see it. I think that this is Ohtani, Acuna, Garrett Cole, Snell, and the rookies are I mean, maybe you'll go a different direction in the AL Rookie of the Year, but I don't see it. I feel like maybe the MVP in the National League could be kind of close if somehow Mookie Betts has like a week of grand slams to end the season or something like that. But I think for the most part, every award is locked up at this point in the season. All right. Well, let's quickly throw the trivia question out there. Twice in history, postseason history, a team lost a postseason series, clinching the ending moment of the postseason series was a wild pitch that scored the series clinching run. That happened twice in baseball history. Both times, the same team lost. The same franchise, twice in their history, lost a postseason series with a wild pitch and the winning run coming across. Which franchise has lost 2 postseason series? One was a World Series, one was a League Championship Series on a wild pitch. And that is your trivia question for today. Millard Thomas, where can people listen to your show? Follow me on Twitter at CareerThomas24 for the personal account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. Listen to the podcast on all your streaming platforms. And please subscribe on the Locked On Diamondbacks YouTube channel. And you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking baseball, talking wild card, talking wild pitches with Millard Thomas. I am the host of Locked On MLB. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan. Call me Sully. Let's fist pump for another week.